Hey everyone, it's Miss Brooks with your Daily Dose of Math. Today we're going to be starting Section 4 of Chapter 1, Literal Equations and Formulas. And in this section, what we're going to do is continue solving equations, but now we're going to face more equations where there are multiple variables in the problem and fewer numbers in the problem. So let's take a look at how we solve literal equations. So our first example, we have the equation I equals PRT, and we want to solve this equation for t. Now, the reason that we need to work with literal equations like this, is because these are equations that can be used for real-life situations. For example, this equation, the I stands for interest, the P for principal, the R for the interest rate, and T for time. So right now this formula will be able to find the simple interest of something, but we want to be able to rearrange it so we can solve it for a different variable in the problem. So in this case, we're solving for t. We want to know the time in this situation. So when we solve literal equations, we're going to think about what's happening and we're going to undo that process. So for this equation, the goal is to get t by itself. So right now the t is being multiplied with both p and r. So when we want to get rid of p and r, the opposite would be to divide both sides by p and r. So when I divide both sides by p and r, on the right, I'm just going to be left with the time t. And then on the left, I'm not going to be able to simplify three variables that I don't even know what numbers are representing them. So I'm just going to leave it the variables I over P R. So in this case, to solve for time, I'd have to take the interest and divide it by the principal times the interest rate. So it is now time for your first U-try. Please pause the video and attempt the following problem. When you have an answer, resume the video to check it. So in this problem, we're still working with the simple interest formula, I equals PRT, but this time we want to solve for the principal P. So if we want to get P all by itself, we want to think what is happening between the P and the R and the T. Well, right now, all three of those variables are being multiplied. So to isolate P, I'm going to need to divide by the R and the T on both sides. That's going to cancel out, so I'm just left with the principal P on the right. And then on the left, I'm left with the I divided by RT. So this tells me that the principal can be found by dividing the interest by the interest rate times time. So it gives me a different formula that I could use just by rearranging the simple interest formula. Our next example says if D equals RT, where D represents distance, R represents rate, and T represents time, what equation can be used to find the rate? So sometimes we have a basic equation and we have to rearrange it to figure out a different variable in the problem. So if we look at what this equation starts us with, it starts us with the fact that distance is equal to the rate times time. Now what I would like to know is how I could just find the rate. So I need to rearrange this formula by solving it for rate, and rate is being represented by R. So I want to isolate R. So I need to get rid of the T. Since rate and time are currently being multiplied, I'm going to divide by time on both sides to find that the rate is equal to the distance divided by time. It is now time for your second U-try. Please pause the video and attempt the following problem yourself. When you have an answer, resume the video to check it. This U-try gives you the equation to find the perimeter of a rectangle or square. So starting with the formula that is given, you have that the perimeter is equal to 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. Now, according to this U-try, it says what equation can be used to find the width? So it wants me to rearrange this formula to solve for W. So what I'm going to need to do is I need to start by getting 2W by itself. So I need to subtract 2L on both sides. So I'm going to have the perimeter minus 2 times the length is equal to 2W. And then since I just want to know what the width is, not twice the width, I'm going to need to divide both sides by 2. So on the right, the 2's cancel. I'll have that the width is equal to, and you can keep this as one big fraction, the perimeter minus 2 times the length divided by 2. And that would be acceptable. If you chose to split this into 2 separate fractions, then you would have the perimeter divided by 2 minus the length, since the 2's would cancel. Either one of those would have been an acceptable answer for this problem. Our last example is A equals 1/2 BH, and we are asked to find H. Now this equation is representative of the area formula for a triangle, where A stands for area, B is the base, and H is the height. So we want to rearrange this area formula to be able to just find the height of the triangle. So when there's a fraction involved, the first thing that I'm going to want to do is get rid of the fraction. So that means I need to multiply by the denominator of the fraction, since this is the only fraction in the problem. So I'm going to start by multiplying both sides by 2. Now since it's one big multiplication problem on the right, I only need to multiply by 2 one time. So when I multiply by 2, we'll be having a 2a on the left, and on the right, the 1/2 and 2 cancel each other out. That was the whole reason for multiplying by 2. Because having one BH left would be the same as just having BH left. So I'm just kind of ignoring the 1 at the top, because multiplying by 1 doesn't change what we have. And now I want to get H by itself. So since H is being multiplied by B, I'm going to divide B on both sides. And this is going to tell me that to find the height of a triangle, I need to multiply twice the area and divide by the base. So that would be the answer to our problem. It is time for your last U-try. Please pause the video and rearrange the formula shown for F. When you have an answer, resume the video to check it. So this equation is the equation used to represent degrees Fahrenheit into degrees Celsius. So what we want to do is figure out, well, how can we convert this to have F by itself? So I see that there is a fraction in my problem. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of that fraction by multiplying both sides by the denominator. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 9. So on the left, I'm going to have 9c. And on the right, now since this is one big multiplication problem, because the parentheses means I'll be multiplying everything, the 9's are canceling out, so I'm just going to be left with that 5 times F minus 32. I'm not actually changing what's inside the parentheses keeping that part safe. And then I'm going to want to get rid of what's outside the parentheses. So what I'm going to choose to do is I'm going to divide by the 5. Because the 5 would currently be multiplied with what was in the parentheses. So right now I have 9c over 5 equal to F minus 32. And then to get f by itself, I'm going to add 32 to both sides. Now clearly I cannot add the 32 with the fraction that has a c, so I'm going to say that f is equal to 9/5 c plus 32. So Fahrenheit is equal to 9/5 degrees Celsius plus 32. Keep in mind, I also could have rewritten this fraction. I could have left it with the 9c over 5. These are two equivalent ways to write that. So if you left it as 9c over 5, that is the exact same as my 9/5 c. 100% the same. So this concludes our lesson on solving literal equations and formulas. If you have any questions, please ask Miss Brooks. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time on your Daily Dose of Math with Miss Brooks.